Some of the testimonies that we're hearing here on Beat Diabetes are absolutely mind-boggling. Like the diabetic who dropped his blood glucose from the upper 400s down into the 90s in about a month. And another man who reported that after 2 months of making a lifestyle change, he had the sudden realization that his feet had stopped burning and hurting. So what's going on here? What's happening is that men and women are beating diabetes. We're going to look at some more comments. This individual says, I just realized that after changing my diet to very low carb for the past couple of months, my feet don't burn or hurt like they used to. Well, that's good news. He says, if I never see another one of your videos, you've sent me down the right path for life. No longer do I walk into the supermarket and just buy food thinking it will lead to a healthy meal. I'm no longer at the mercy of diabetes. You've given me the means to make choices so I don't lose my limbs, go blind, or end up on dialysis, but to live a healthy, active life. Your teaching is priceless. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Well, I like what this individual said about if I never see another one of your videos, you've set me down the right path. I've got it figured out now. And I think that is cool, and it is really true. You don't need to watch 100 of my videos. I don't even know how many videos I've made. I'll have to check sometime. I think I've made over 100 now. You don't have to watch all 100 to get it figured out. In fact, I would say that most people who have a reasonable intelligence can get this thing figured out by watching about 7 of them, if they pick the right ones. So it's not all that hard to figure out. Now, I do think there's a reason to continue to watch my videos and other videos from people that are saying similar things. And the reason is to be able to maintain your low-carb diet, to cheerfully go through life. Sometimes we need a little extra motivation. So when you've just found out you've got diabetes and you type in, how do I beat diabetes? How do I reverse diabetes? How can I conquer diabetes? And you come up with some videos like the ones that I do, you're getting information, and you badly need it. You desperately need information. So in the early stages, that's what you're getting, that's what you need. After a while, you kind of get it figured out, but guess what? A lot of people who know this stuff forwards and backwards, some of them know it better than I do, they still watch my videos. Well, they're feeding themselves on the truth. And sometimes you need to feed your spirits on the truth even after you know the truth. It's kind of like Christians reading the Bible. We just keep reading it even though, we pretty well get it. I've been reading the Bible since 1973. And there's not a lot of new stuff that I come across. Now, granted, I can still get revelations and insights, but most of the scriptural passages are my friends, but I still read it because it helps me to maintain my walk with the Lord. And so it is with diabetes. You need to maintain your stance, that diet, the lifestyle that will give you victory. So even though you may know it, it's good to feed on these things. All right, here's another comment. How wrong we are about fat. Well, I couldn't agree more. You wouldn't believe how many comments people have said, yeah, but you're going to kill yourself with a heart attack. You may beat diabetes, but you'll go down to a heart attack. This person says how wrong we are about fat. I was one of those who thought fat was a horrible thing, but now since I'm a diabetic and I started watching your videos, I've completely changed my mind. Now listen to this. He says, my wife is French. And when I first started dating her, I was shocked to see the amount of butter that she ate. And she used butter to cook pretty much everything. Well, that's how I've become. I cook all kinds of things in butter these days. The more butter, the better. So this guy says, I told her, don't eat butter. That's not good for your health. And she said to me, you're wrong. We all, that is, all of us French people eat butter. We've been eating it since we were born. And that brings about what has been called the French paradox. back in the 60s when Ansel Keys was promoting the low-fat, low-fat diet, high-carb, low-fat diet. And he used 7 different countries, and he created a study out of 7 countries, but he left off a lot of countries that didn't really match with his findings. And as I understand it, one of the countries he left off was France, because the French eat a lot of fat, or at least they did in those days. I'm not sure if they still do, but they have always eaten, traditionally, a lot of fat, a lot of butter, a lot of olive oil, and yet they have far less heart problems, far less heart disease than we Americans do. And so when they were coming out with this idea of the low-fat diet, get that fat down to almost nothing. Don't eat avocados, don't eat nuts, don't eat meat, don't have olive oil, just no fat hardly at all. When they were pushing that so hard, they didn't really know what to do with the French, and so they called it the French paradox, which basically means we don't know how to explain this. Well, today, it's not really much of a paradox at all. It just makes perfect sense. You can eat as much fat as you want, typically, if it's healthy fat, as long as you keep the carbs low. Now, if you eat high carbs plus high fat, that can be a real problem. But low carbs, high fat is going to give you better triglycerides, is going to just give you better numbers across the board. The truth is that today we're eating in a way nobody ever heard of. We're eating so many carbs and such terrible carbs and all the white flour and all the sugar and all the added sugar and all the high fructose corn syrup and sugar in everything. It's just totally unnatural. We are overdosing. Our world is drowning in an ocean of carbohydrates. And it's not just true with America. America has led the way, I'm sorry to say, and let me apologize for America, in the way we have pushed the low-fat, high-carb diet and load up on the carbs, load up on the sugar, don't worry about these things. We've led the way, but we're not the only ones anymore. And you find that same kind of nonsense in India, in China, in all the world. Pastries. The world has discovered the pastry, which is a perfect storm of metabolic issues and obesity issues. The pastry is a white flour product, often with something sweet inside and then a sugary glaze on the outside. And so we sip our coffee and we eat our pastries and we have we call that breakfast. It's absolute disaster for blood sugar, for diabetes, for heart problems. It is not heart healthy. The day used to be when the breakfast cereal companies would put out breakfast cereals loaded with sugar, made with white flour, the absolute worst kind of a food you could eat, and then they would proudly announce heart healthy on the package. Can you believe it? Well, finally, the government wised up a little bit and forced them to stop doing that. But for the longest time, you could eat all this junk cereal, white flour, high sugar, and the proud boast on the package, heart healthy. Heart disaster would be more like it. It turns out the things we feared the most are actually our friends. Butter, ghee, olive oil, good healthy meats are our friends. And our enemies are all those little creatures that they put at the base of the food pyramid back in the 80s, I guess it was. All the carbs and all the sugary things and the pastries and the pasta and the bagels and the donuts and the pretzels, all that high-carb junk turned out to be our enemies, not our friends. Another comment, Pastor Dennis, I want to thank you so much for your guidance, both spiritually and physically. Last month, I went to have a physical exam for my new job here at Stanford. The nurse that was attending to me got super worried. Well, that's not good when the nurse gets worried. He says, because my blood glucose reading was dangerously high at 488. 488. That's terrible. She asked me if I wanted to talk to a physician. I said I did, so they wanted to admit me to emergency care. But this person says, I insisted I didn't want to do that. I went home and started to do my research. Instant motivation. And that is what we need. Sad to say, he had to get a reading of 488 to get his motivation, but I guess better late than never. He said, I went home, I started to do my research, and the first thing I saw and watched was one of your videos. I've been watching and following your guidance for about a month now. Fast forward to today. So this guy's not been doing it very long. 1 month since a 488 when he sent this comment. I'm not sure when I received this comment. I get those kind of jumbled together. But 1 month time, he said, to today, my blood glucose never goes up to 150 anymore. It's always under 150. And before meals, it stays in the 90s. That's just amazing. He says, I really want to thank you. You and your wife inspired me to change my diet. I'm praying you will continue to inspire people like me. Well, here we see the power and the speed of slashing carbs and getting them way down. I mean, this doesn't just work normally. I won't say that always, but normally it works fast. And the thing that made this effective and made it work for this guy is he tested himself. Well, let's see. I was at 488. Let's see if I'm still at 488 today. And before long, within a month's time, this just blows my mind. Within a month's time, he's down in the 90s before his meals, and it never goes up past 150. Wonderful. He says, I really want to thank you and your wife inspired me to change my diet. Well, feedback is powerful. I did a video in the early days of this channel. I don't know if you've seen it. That was back when I had maybe a few hundred subscribers instead of as many as I do now. But I did a video where I went out to a golf driving range. I'm a kind of a wannabe golfer. I used to play golf. I was actually on the golf team in high school. I wasn't very good. And I always loved golf in high school. I was a fanatic, and I've gotten away from it. I don't play it. And the sad thing about golf is you almost have to play it constantly to be much good. And it's just miserable to go out and play a bad round of golf and hit one bad shot after another. So I'm not really highly motivated to play a lot of golf. But anyway, I went out to a golf driving range, and I showed myself. I think Benedicta went with me, did some of the camera work. We showed me trying to hit a golf ball with a red bandana around my eyes. So I was blindfolded trying to hit a golf ball. Well, number one, it'd be hard to hit it at all. But two, if I did hit the ball, there'd be no way I could know whether it was going to the right, to the left, popping up high in the sky, or dribbling along the ground. I wouldn't be able to tell how the shot went because I was blindfolded. There was no feedback. And one of the reasons golfers go to a driving range and hit golf balls is after they hit it, they watch where it goes. And so if the ball is consistently going away off to the right, every time they hit the ball, it's going off to the right, and they're watching it. They're getting the feedback with their eyes. Every time they hit it, it's going off to the right. They say, I've got to change my grip. I've got to change my stance. I've got to do something different. Every time I hit the ball, it's going to the right. Well, how do they know it's going to the right? They watched it. Well, your glucometer is your feedback when it comes to diabetes. It's telling you whether you're hitting to the right or to the left. If I go to the driving range and I hit 100 balls and every one of them goes straight down the center about 260 yards, man, I'm happy. I'm not going to change my grip. I'm not going to change my stance. I'm just going to keep on doing exactly what I'm doing as long as I can. Now, I've never been able to capture that kind of consistency with golf, so I'm not saying I ever have. But if that ever was the case, you can bet I'll stay with that grip. I'll stay with that stance, and I'll just keep trying to swing it the same way. Well, when it comes to diabetes, your glucometer is your feedback, and of course your A1C score that you get every 3 months or so. So if the numbers are good, if you're getting them down and you're watching that and say, wow, I'm in the 90s before I eat. I'm not in the 400s. I'm not in the 300s. I'm not in the 200s anymore. You say, I must be doing something right. Let's stick with this. Let's just keep on with this. This is working. It's called feedback, my friend, feedback. And we desperately need it because feedback provides motivation, and you need motivation. It provides actually two things, information and motivation, and we need them both. We need the information to know what works and what doesn't. We need the motivation to stay with what works and to move away from what doesn't. And the glucometer does it. It's amazing what happens when you buy a $20 or a $30 glucometer and invest a little money in testing strips. And I know they're expensive, and some of you can't, test as often as I do, but you can test some. And the truth is, if you think test strips are expensive, how about hospital visits? How about having to buy a new wheelchair because they've cut your legs off? You think that's not expensive? So I'd much rather buy a few test strips and have a little extra expense on that end rather than have dialysis or amputation or all kinds of problems. But it's fascinating to me. He's been watching my videos for a month and seen such phenomenal results. What kind of medicine could do that? Metformin can be helpful, but it can't do that. It can't get you down from 488 to in the 90s in a month's time. No metformin can do that, nor any other diabetic meds. So this is powerful. And let me say one other thing about the fact that he watched my videos, and that played a role in it. How did he come to see my videos? Well, almost for sure, he came to see my videos the same way that everybody else does, which is you type in something about diabetes, and YouTube search engine brings up a bunch of videos to watch. Now, guess what? If you're a YouTube creator like me, and your video shows up number 923, nobody will ever click on it. They'll never see it. Nobody's got the patience to go down to 900 videos before they get to yours. But if it comes up number 1 or 3 or 4 or 5, they'll click on it probably. And so we YouTube creators are at the mercy of YouTube to promote us. If they don't promote us, we're dead. We've got no YouTube channel. We've got no views. It doesn't matter how good our content. If YouTube doesn't promote us, we're dead. Well, the thing of it is, there's no little Mr. YouTube sitting in a corner office somewhere watching videos and saying, I like this, I don't like that. YouTube makes its promotions based on a computerized artificial intelligence. And they keep track of videos. They keep track of how many people like it, how many people will watch it, how long will they watch it. If you watch it for 5 seconds and you click off of it, YouTube's artificial intelligence recognizes that. And if enough people do that, they say this is a stinker, nobody likes it, and they stop promoting it. But if people watch it for any length of time and they click on it and then they like it, the artificial intelligence of YouTube says this is a winner, and they start promoting it, number 1, number 2, number 3. And people type in diabetes, want to beat diabetes, and bam, there it is. So that, by the way, just for your information, that's why practically every YouTuber, every YouTube creator will always tell you, please like my videos. And a lot of times they'll say things like, now, if you have a comment, they'll ask a question sometimes, what is your thought about this? Leave it in the comments. Well, the truth is they're not desperately wanting to know what you think. I hate to burst your bubble about that, but they know the more comments they get, the more the YouTube artificial intelligence will recognize that that's an interesting video, and they'll promote it to others. So you're just leaving comments helps the video to be promoted. Liking it helps the video to be promoted. Watching it, full length or for quite a bit of time will cause it to get promoted. And so by doing these things, you're helping other diabetics to learn these things that they need to know and to see some of my videos. So thank you for those of you that like it, those of you that watch it and click on it and so forth.